This presentation is called Cloud Atlas, Stories and Ideas. For this presentation, two cultural artifacts were used. The first one is a novel written by David Mitchell, published in 2004. It consists of 6 different narratives set in 6 different periods that are intertwined. The other cultural artifact is a film based on the novel that was released in 2012. It was written and directed by Lana Wachowski, Lily Wachowski, and Tom Tykwer. In the layout of this presentation, you can see the plot structure of the novel, the plot structure of the film, and some topics we have been working during the seminar, such as imperialism, queer theory, environmentalism, postmodernism and identity, modernity, and anthropocentrism. Then you can watch the film trailer to see more clearly the connections among the stories, and then the explicit connections through quotations of the stories that are connected. In the plot structure of the novel, we can see a Russian doll structure. That is to say that each story is nested into another one. The first 5 stories are interrupted at a pivotal moment. The 6th story is the only one that is not interrupted, and the rest of the stories are resolved in reverse chronological order. In the plot structure of the film, the 6 narratives overlap, and the same actors and actresses play different roles in each story to emphasize the idea of reincarnation. It also refers to the motif of iterability, a notion used by Jacques Derrida, referring to the capacity of a sign to be repeatable in different contexts. In the Pacific Journal of Adam Ewing, we can see imperialism. This story is set in 1849 in the Chatham Islands off the coast of modern-day New Zealand. Mr. Wagstaff, a white settler, drew an analogy between slaves and ants that is similar to Joseph Chamberlain's ideas exposed in his speech, The True Concept of Empire, written in 1897. The British Empire had a sense of possession and obligation towards the natives. They justified the use of force to destroy the practices of barbarism. That is the price they had to pay to gain humanity. In Letters from Saddlegem, we deal with queer theory. These quotations from Robert Frobisher's letters to Rufus Sixsmith suggest that Robert Frobisher was a bisexual. He had sex with Jocasta and Eva. They were mother and daughter in Vivian Ayres's house, where Robert stayed as Vivian's amanuensis. It is implied that he also was a Rufus Sixsmith's lover, who was presumed to be a homosexual. In the 1930s, these sexual practices were not heteronormative, so they were considered pathological. Michel Foucault used the term heteronormativity to specify the tendency in the contemporary Western sex-gender system to view heterosexual relations as the norm and all other forms of sexual behavior as deviations from this norm. In Half-Lives, the first Risa Ray mystery, we see the topic of environmentalism. This story takes place in San Francisco, California in the 1970s. Risa Ray is a journalist who has evidence to prove that Swaneke, a famous nuclear power plant, is not as safe as it seems. Several people were murdered and Risa's own life is at risk. Richard Kerridge makes a point of the environmental values of Native American cultures to go against those of white industrial capitalism. Louisa joins forces with a group of activists with Native Americans among them to expose the truth. In The Ghastly Ordeal of Timothy Cavendish, we deal with postmodernism and identity. The story of Timothy Cavendish is a clear example of metafiction, one of the main features of postmodern literature. Just like Paul Auster's works, narration is important for creating identity as well as for depiction of literary character. Postmodern literature is plenty of intertextuality, and the narrative of the characters are often fragmented, contradictory, and challenge the reader's ability to perceive the characters as personae. In An Horizon of Sonmi 451, we reveal the hidden face of modernity. In the future, in the city of Seoul, there are purebloods, naturally born individuals, and fabricants who are clones. After 12 years, they are supposed to be sent to Southeast where they're raised, but in fact, they're slaughtered to be fed to consumers and other fabricants. This process is connected to the Holocaust during the Second World War. Zygmunt Bauman described the three conditions that erode moral inhibitions: authority, that is the authorization of violence, that serves to distance people from each other and makes it easier to people to let go of the moral responsibility they would otherwise use. Then we have routinization, that is to make a work a routine to be able to act without thinking. And then dehumanization, to make people seem less than human, because if a person is renamed and reframed such that they don't fit in that universe, that we can avoid the moral conundrum of killing the person. In this case, the fabricants were not considered people, so they will be disposable. In Sluicious Crossing and Everything After, we deal with anthropocentrism. In a post-apocalyptic future, humans become savages in order to survive. Zachary protects his clan from the Kona, a tribe of cannibals, and Meronym, a prescient who belongs to a more civilized tribe, shows him the truth. Humankind is a threat to nature. Zeng Faren, in his proposition of eco-ontological aesthetics, argues that Western civilization, shaped by anthropocentrism, may be the fundamental cause of contemporary ecological crisis. To solve the environmental crisis, the most critical issue lies in developing a non-anthropocentric attitude towards physical nature. Here you can scan the QR code to watch the extended trailer of the film and see better the connections among the stories. Here we can see Adam Ewing's journal and its connections with the other stories. Adam Ewing finds Dr. Henry Goose collecting human teeth on a distant beach. The motif of cannibalism is present in An Horizon of Sonmi 451 as well, when the fabricants feed themselves where they drink soap. It also appears in Sluicious Crossing and Everything After, when the Kona, a cannibal tribe, attacks Zachary and his clan. Robert Frobisher's letters are connected to Adam Ewing's journal because Robert Frobisher finds an edited version of Adam Ewing's journal in Vivian Ayres's house. The book is not complete, and nobody knows where that book comes from. Robert helps Vivian to compose a symphonic work called Eternal Recurrence in honor to the concept developed by Friedrich Nietzsche, among other authors. It states that time repeats itself in an infinite loop and the universe is periodically destroyed and reborn. This is another reference to the motif of iterability. Louisa Ray is also connected to Robert Frobisher because she meets Rufus Sixsmith, who was Robert Frobisher's former lover. They meet locked up in an elevator. Sixsmith immediately feels connected to her. He offers her a report to prove the corruption in Swanike, but he is murdered before delivering it. Louisa gets the report and the correspondence between Sixsmith and Robert Frobisher. She finds out that Robert Frobisher had a birthmark just like hers at exactly the same place. She enters the record store and hears the Cloud Atlas Sextet composed by Robert Frobisher, and she knows that she heard it before. It is implied that Lisa Ray is the reincarnation of Robert Frobisher. In Timothy Cavendish memoir, we can see the connections with the other stories. Timothy Cavendish flees his creditors and he has more problems coming. He asks his brother to help him and he sends him to Aurora House, a no-escape nursing home. He carries a manuscript written by a mysterious author that tells Lisa Ray's story and he reads it from time to time. He has a comet-shaped birthmark, just like Robert Frobisher and Lisa Ray, but in a different part of his body. He exclaims some lines from the film Soylent Green, directed by Richard Fleischer in 1973, based on the novel Make Room, written by Harry Harrison in 1966. In both works, Soylent Green is a meal replacement made of human beings. This is a clear reference to cannibalism that also appears in Adam Ewing's journal, Sonmi's Origin and Zachary's Tale. In Sonmi's testimony, we can also see the connections with the other stories. During her Horizon, Sonmi 451 tells the archivist that she watched a part of the film based on the ghastly ordeal of Timothy Cavendish. She was amazed to see some proof of what life was like in the past. She also has a birthmark between her shoulder blade and collarbone, just like Robert Frobisher and Louisa Ray. It suggests a new reincarnation. Zachary Bailey's reminiscences are also connected to the other stories. Almost 500 years later, history comes full circle. People live in tribes and cannibals are a threat. Zachary Bailey's community worships Sonmi as she was a goddess, and lots of myths were constructed around her. But Miriam shows Zachary that Sonmi was real and died as a martyr. Sonmi left her horizon to the world. Nevertheless, the fall was inevitable. Adam Ewing wondered if a pure predatory world shall consume itself. This appears on the book. Zachary and Myrny made the right choices to show that humankind deserves to survive. If life is an eternal recurrence, we can always start over. And to round off, I used a quotation from Sonmi that says, "Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others, past and present, and by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future." And here is the bibliography and the other resources used for this presentation. Thank you very much.